More about what's behind the cancellation and what comes next. Retired four-star General, Fox News senior strategic analyst, General Jack Keane weighs in now. Great to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Shannon.
Okay, so the president says in this initial tweet today that he's asked the Secretary of State not to go because he says, I quote, feel we're not making sufficient progress with respect to the end goal.
Well, what do we really know? The intelligence services have been unfortunately leaking information to all of us over the last 4 to 6 weeks that North Korea is advancing their nuclear program, advancing their missile program, and certainly not denuclearizing. The President and Secretary Pompeo have considerably more information available to them than that. And I think they walked up to this final meeting and they had some pretty positive indications that the meeting was not going to lead anywhere. The last meeting, in terms of diplomacy, was catastrophic. Why is that? Secretary Pompeo put on the table, look, you got to tell me where all your nuclear sites are and where all your ballistic missile sites are, all the research, fuel, et cetera, that you do that. And here's the timetable that we suggest for denuclearization. They balked about that.
They were
and that came to comment in the introduction. This was gangster-style diplomacy. So we came back and said, all right, okay, we're going to give them a little bit more time. In the Asian culture, trust is important. It takes time to establish trust. Secretary Pompeo came back and said, look, we're dealing with a strategy of patient diplomacy. Actually, quite similar to strategic diplomacy of the Obama administration,
exactly.
you and I are very familiar with. But I think they have run out of their patience because they see no positive signs. So where are we now? Listen, the president is staying positive because he wants public diplomacy to stay positive and hold out hope. All of the president's national security team, Pompeo, Bolton, the CIA, Haspel, the rest of them, clear-eyed for sure. They know what's going on. They got the intelligence. We're going to have to start clamping down on sanctions to be sure, make sure they understand the military options on the table. Here's the problem with the sanctions, though, Shannon.
Well, we have this issue with China. I mean, that's one of the things is that we have had reports from the UN, from others who have said that Russia and China and others may be helping, and they may not truly be, cracking down on these sanctions. Harry Kazianis says this, a well-known North Korean expert with the Center for National Interest. He said China might be using North Korea as the ultimate bargaining chip, saying to the Trump, if you are not willing to play ball with us on trade, because we've been having these trade talks this week, we're not willing to play ball with you on North Korea. How much do you think the trade talks this week with China, where we're getting tough with them and we're talking about another round of tariffs, is complicating this North Korea situation?
Well, the president actually mentioned it himself, so he knows it's an issue. The Russians have never shut the door. They've always been transferring fuel at ships off the coast and passing other commodities to it. But here's the problem you really have. Remember, the UN resolutions, 3 of them, and Secretary Tillerson, when he was the Secretary of State, was able to get all the countries and Nikki Haley to support sanctions and really slam them hard in terms of enforcement. When it comes to sanctions, it's one thing for a country to say we're going to do it, another thing to enforce it. So they clamped down hard, but they had the aura of crisis. Remember, nuclear tests were going on, ballistic missiles were being fired all the time.
On a regular basis.
There was imminent danger that everybody felt. This guy hasn't done anything for 9 months, Kim Jong-un. As a result of that, the sense of crisis is not there. And he's playing his cards pretty well. It's going to be harder for us to go back. We're going to push on China before. We're not going to have any progress with the Russians because they've always had the door open. It's even going to be harder for us for some of the nations where it's financially enviable for them to be doing business with North Korea. They're smaller countries, to be sure. So listen, I think the administration knows what they're dealing with. They understood this right from the beginning. I think they're quietly, not publicly, going to get really tough here on what's happening. And if that doesn't work, then the president publicly will also get pretty tough.
Well, we've had some critics step up, like Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat, of course, saying, all along this really wasn't going to work. And so it's good for the president to kind of, take back what he referred to could be an embarrassing setback for the Americans. So we know that no matter what happens in this, there will always be critics. But we always thank you for the inside scoop on this, General. Great to have you.
Yeah, it's good talking to Shannon.
Have a good weekend.